All right, so we have a lot of great baseball minds on the webinar tonight, and this is going to be really exciting. I prepared a simple little PowerPoint presentation, but I wasn't sure who was going to be on tonight. But I knew that Kevin Kouzmanoff was going to be on, so we're going to welcome him back. Him and JT from Catalyst Sports, right? Catalyst Academy. How do you say Catalyst Sports?
Yeah, Catalyst Sports. Yep.
Catalyst Sports. And then for the first time ever, we got Xavier Scruggs on tonight. And really quick about Xavier, I remember played against him in the minor leagues when he was coming up with the St. Louis Cardinals. So I remember playing against him in Memphis a lot. But then I remember playing against him, I think it was 2016, when you were with the Miami Marlins, Xavier, and when I was with the Padres. So Xavier also runs an organization called Extraordinary Athlete, which is he has a podcast. I was actually just on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday with him. It was awesome. It was a great job. Really passionate about baseball, like all of us. But
No, I was actually at UNLV for 1 year for X's junior year, and he was an All-American that year. Absolute stud. So I don't know his full bio, but I know the dude could ball.
Yeah.
Flat out rakes.
That's right. Yeah. That's a dynamite drop in right there, JT. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you got disconnected, but we did a quick background on you. I'm not sure if you want to just give
Yeah, I heard JT too, by the way. Good to see you, JT, again.
Yeah, you too, man.
And you too, Kuz. Yeah, I just right now kind of in that transition phase from just finishing up playing to what may be next. And I've started Extraordinary Athletes business, which is here in Tampa. There's a new athletic facility going up, and the owner that's running it has asked me to bring a life skills aspect to the athletic facility, which will help young athletes during, before, or after their training get better with things such as dealing with failure, things such as discipline and motivation, self-motivation, anxiety, depression, and being a leader. So those are the types of things that we'll bring to this aspect of a training facility. Ultimately, just trying to get players to understand that the more well-rounded that they are as human beings, the better it is for them to take off as an actual player and as an individual, even after their game, after their sport is done. So just trying to build more well-rounded individuals in that sense. And I'm happy to be on and talking about hitting now, because Adam has a great course going on here, and I'm just excited to be involved in some way, in some shape.
Xavier, that's awesome, man. That's fantastic. So tonight we're gonna talk about the fourth core value, and that's finish. How you finishing your swing, and how important this is in a swing, and everybody's from little league all the way up to the big leagues. So first, we're gonna start with the mental side, or a positive character trait of what a baseball player or any human being should have. And for me, accountability is huge.
Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and speak on that. I think part of that, understanding that as an athlete, is knowing that it's gonna take a lot more than you think to get to where you want to be. Understanding where you're trying to go is most important when you're thinking about accountability, because if I'm going to hold myself accountable to something and be disciplined and be super focused on doing it, I need to know exactly where I'm trying to get to. And accountability is looking yourself in the mirror and saying, okay, what is going to try to stop me from getting to where I need to be let me recognize those things, and those are all distractions from where I want to be. And how do I plan on not letting those distractions get in my way? So I think when I think of accountability, I think of looking myself in the mirror, knowing what my positives and negatives are as a human being. I know that sometimes I may be on the phone and I love to make TikTok videos, or I love to be scrolling on Instagram, but is that kind of stopping me or taking away time from me going to the cage or me getting some extra ground balls? So I need to be accountable in that sense to recognize, okay, how's my time management? What does that look like? You know, am I taking full advantage of the time that I have? So I think that if you have a plan and you know what some of the things are that distract you, you can attack those things and really understand, okay, how do I get better at not letting things distract me? So that's my focus point on accountability.
That's awesome, Xavier. Because for me, I always told myself, you only get one shot at this, whether it's your high school team, college, pro ball, like you get one shot. And if you don't do it, there's nobody else to blame. So the distractions need to be limited.
Well, I think on the distraction side of it, you know, we get to high school and we turn 16 years old and we get a car. Now we got some freedom. Maybe we get a girlfriend, right? And there's some distractions because I've been there, done that. And I didn't have a cell phone. But nowadays, there are a lot more distractions. And you go to the gym or you go to the batting cage and these guys, you know, they got their cell phone there with them and they're talking to their friends or Snapchatting, whatever they're doing. And there isn't a mind to body aspect of it, in my opinion. I feel like when you go to the gym and you work out, you know, you see some people with their cell phones and they're texting people or scrolling through Instagram, like you're saying. You know, if you're sitting there doing heavy squats and in between sets, you're worrying about how many messages you've gotten on, you know, Instagram or whatever. There's no mind-body connection there. And I feel like that there's got to be, you have to completely sell out and dedicate yourself to getting better, really, you know? And, you know, there's, you know, Rosie, for you, you know, this book, Extreme Ownership, you know, might be your book for you. For me, it was The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. Mm-hmm. And when you wake up every morning, at least for me, when I woke up every morning, I was going to brush my teeth. Or when I went to bed, I was going to brush my teeth. And I had no thought process about that. I just knew I was going to do it. So when you wake up every day, at least when I woke up every day, I was going to go train. I was going to lift weights. I was going to run. I was going to hit baseballs. I was going to field ground balls. I was going to hit. I was going to do all those things. And it wasn't even a question. And so that book for me, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, ingrained in me that this is what I'm going to wake up and do every single day. And I'm not going to question it. You know, you don't think about it. It's just something that you do. So for me, that was a very valuable book at a younger age when my mind was a little scatterbrained. I had these distractions, you know. And you said earlier that you have a small window and it closes very fast, because I remember my career when it started and when it ended, it was over that fast. And so to know that at a younger age, the sooner the better to maximize, you know, my potential in that window that I had. So that was kind of my mindset, you know, training wise, growing up.
Love it, Kuz. And for those who just joined us, that's Kevin Kouzmanoff sharing that awesome insight about holding yourself accountable. It's good stuff. Thank you, Kuz.
You're welcome.
All right, so we'll move on, and I'll just kind of give you like what I've learned. So Ron Washington was the infield coach. Sorry, I apologize. He was my manager. I know he's an infield coach. He does a lot of infield stuff, but he's my manager in Texas when we played for the Rangers. I think Kuz, you as well, right?
Yes.
And I remember he'd always tell me, and he'd always tell my teammates, just do what the game asks you to do, right? So, and for me, I always thought, like, what does wash really mean by that? And that's for me personally, that means take advantage of the opportunity that's at hand right here. The game's going to ask you to drive a guy in from third base. Do it. Make sure you do it, right? I know it's easier said than done, but if you can do that, if you can hold yourself accountable in these situations consistently, you're going to be a great baseball player. So that was the first one. And then I put the integrity. Accountability, integrity kind of go, for me, it's like almost hand in hand. And obviously I made the grit. I turned that red. The word grit was inside integrity because it is. All of us know there's a lot of baseball players on here tonight. A lot of guys that have been through a long season, and it takes grit and gumption to get through these seasons. But no matter what, you got to play and practice like there's someone watching you. At least that's for me. I mean, that's me saying. I'm sure a lot of guys might not want to put that pressure on themselves, but I always acted like somebody was watching me, and I had to perform. Whether like when I was in high school, I was like, "There's a scout in the stands," but the field was completely empty. I'm like, I know there's someone watching. And then when I got to the big leagues, I'm like, I know there's a 12-year-old kid watching me that is gonna see how I go about my business every day. I mean, he probably wasn't. He was probably watching, he's probably watching Kouz instead of me, but still, I always acted like somebody was watching me, and they were holding me accountable in a sense. And then coming out of the book, Extreme Ownership, or from Jocko, the Navy SEAL, I got take a punch or take a hit. It's gonna really be tough sometimes. But Jocko, this Navy SEAL guy, says, I got bullets flying at me, good. I can't sleep for 3 days in a row, good. Right? Because he's gonna, no matter what the situation is, he's not gonna blame anybody else. He's gonna take advantage of the opportunity at hand, and whatever happens, he's gonna hold himself accountable. So I really like that. Those are my three that I've got from accountability. Not sure if anybody has a comment or question, but I'll wait a second before we move on to the mechanics of hitting.
Yeah, I think that's good, especially take a punch, take a hit. No matter the circumstances as an athlete, especially if we want to be an athlete that's one of the best in our game, the best in our field, we can't let excuses get in the way of us getting to where we need to be. No matter what the situation may be, like you said, there might be some pressure situations, runner on third, less than 2 outs, whatever it may be, get them in. There's going to be pressure situations all the time. And like the guy says, good. The better we get at those tougher situations, the easier it becomes for us and the game starts to slow down. And I'm sure some of you other guys can attest to that.
That's a great point of slowing the game down. Love it, man. Yeah.
Like one, can you hear me, Rose?
Yeah, this is Pat Mish.
One example for me, and I kind of bring this up sometimes, is on the pitching side. I was a pitcher. We have to run. And my first season in Short A in Salem, Kaiser, Oregon, it was myself and another right-handed pitcher who were like neck and neck in ERA. About halfway through the season was only about 3 months, 3.5 months. He came up to me and he just said, hey, if the trainer or the pitching coach come up to you, tell them I did my running. And his numbers went up and my numbers kind of stayed the same and went down. And it was like, you can't take 25 minutes, 30 minutes out of your day to go get that done, even though you don't like it. So I kind of always remembered that.
Love it, man. I mean, for me, I always tell kids, like, it's gonna stink, like that extra rep, those extra 10 ground balls that you have to take in a row before you stop taking ground balls, or you try to hit 10 balls off the back of the net. Like you can take the shortcut, you can cut corners, but again, goes back to you only got one shot at this. And tonight we're talking about finish. And we already talked about phase one of finish, and this is what phase one was about. So there's two core concepts that I have. You want to finish north, so you want to finish up high. It always helped me because I had a tendency, I'm really stiff upper body. I had a tendency to finish east to west. So I always thought finish north, and I felt like I accelerated through the ball better. And then we talked about one-hand finish versus two-hand finish.
Adam, would you agree that your swing would be east and west if you have a pitch higher in the zone, maybe at your shoulders?
That's a great question. I mean, do you have a like an idea about that? Like,
Well, I think it could be pitch dependent. Maybe on a low pitch, you'd be, you know, at the bottom of the kneecaps, you'd be, you know, north to south, you know, but then if you have a pitch up at the letters, you know, we're still north to south, then now we're, you know, last session we talked about swinging on plane, you know, and so I mean I was just thinking that maybe east and west would be more of a pitch up here, which is out of the strike zone, which is what we don't want. But if we're talking, you know, pitch in the zone, that correct, north to south or south to north.
So Scott Emerson's on. He's the pitching coach for the Oakland Athletics. Emo, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So is that like a lot of pitchers are throwing that up there, right? Like a little bit above the belt because they want you to swing that right now, right?
Well, I think, you know, what Kuz talked about was perfect. You know, the reason why we elevate is because you can't make that adjustment. So when hitters can't get on top of that baseball and make the adjustment, we see a lot of swings going more north and south, no matter where the baseball is being pitched, because a lot of hitters are, in my opinion, taught this new launch angle term, and they start creating this swing a little bit too early. And if they're not on time, you know, they're not able to get to the high heater. So the only way they can get there is try to cheat and get there. And good pitching, you know, is going to beat that north and south swing if they can't cover the upper third of the strike zone.
Right. I mean, that was, for me personally, that was my cold zone right there, because I couldn't get there. But like a ball or two down, I felt like that was my hot zone, you know? So
yeah, I remember you hitting a lot of balls kind of middle up, slightly away, and you take that ball to right center field all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, but just the ball up. If the pitcher made a good pitch, I was toast though. That's how close hitting is, and how fine you have to be as a pitcher, probably too, right?
Yeah.
Well, cool. Emo, thank you. So finishing north allows a hitter to accelerate into the baseball, and you know, I'd accelerate, like you kind of forget about that. Like you're gonna finish your swing. You want to get to it, but you want to keep finishing. And I didn't start thinking about that until later in my career, and I really have to remind myself to complete my swing. It's essential, right? I know it sounds fundamental, but really have to focus on completing your swing. And then it helps you have an offensive swing and avoids the recoil. So we already covered that. So this is a great drill that I like doing. When you think finish north, it frees your swing and allows you to be more of an offensive hitter rather than a defensive hitter. It also eliminates that east to west move, which causes you to cut off your swing. When I think finish high through the ball, I feel more committed to my contact point. I like doing the back against the net drill because it forces me to finish high. And this is how you set it up. Place a tee about 4 feet from a net or a fence, and you'll stand in between the net and the tee. Swing, hit the ball at the tee, and focus on finishing high with the top of your bat pointing straight up to the sky. Now, if you hit the net with your bat, that means that you're swinging east to west, which causes you to be in and out of the hitting zone too quick. And this causes a recoil, which promotes a defensive swing. Remember, you want to be aggressive and offensive to the baseball. Has anybody done this drill before?
Yeah, Adam, I've done the drill, and I think that's a very beneficial drill for anybody that's working on accelerating through the ball. And it definitely gives you feedback, immediate feedback right away. I think that it's important for us as hitters, and even within that drill, you have to keep a certain posture. And I think that that's another important key when we're in the box. Obviously, is pitchers. Emo will talk about this. Is like they're trying to get us off balance and off our timing. So if we're able to keep a strong posture and recognize when we're failing to do so, we're going to be more consistent when attacking the ball through the zone. I think that's a drill that I tried to work on toward the beginning of my minor league career, beginning in the minor leagues, because I didn't have the posture that I needed, and I continually was swinging east to west and rolling over a lot of balls. So that was something that really helped me personally.
No, that's fantastic. I wonder, like, now that we talked about a Kuz, because I didn't think about it. I mean, but maybe if we did put the tee up a little higher on a drill like this, do you think that would be beneficial?
Well, I think regardless, you want to hit through it and finish through that thing.
Right.
I was thinking, I've never done that drill myself.
Yeah.
But last year in spring training, I saw Trace Lair doing that drill. And he was doing it with the low tee, that tee that was right at the knees, right at the bottom of the knees there. And, a lot of pitching coaches, and Emo, correct me if I'm wrong, when Rosie, I think when we were coming up, a lot of pitching coaches were teaching throw the ball down in the zone, get ground balls, right?
Uh-huh.
And so us as hitters were taught to swing down on the baseball. So you got this pitching coach telling their pitcher to throw the ball down in the zone to get ground balls, but here we are being taught to swing down on the baseball. So you're like, okay, this sounds funny. And so when I saw Trace doing this drill in Mesa last year, I thought it was a great drill, that low tee, and that forced him to finish really high. Because if he's going east and west on that low tee, he's, as a lefty, he's going to just wear out the first base coach. So that forced him to finish high, and keep that thing fair. Because if we're east to west, there's no way we can keep that ball fair.
Right, that's a great point.
Respect to it with the high pitch. Maybe, yeah, I think we might be hitting that net. I think long as we focus on staying through it, short to it, long through. That's all your notes there.
Yeah.
I think we should be fine.
Cool, man. So was Trace doing it with the low tee with his net? With his back against the net too?
Yes.
He was, huh? That's cool. JT, have you seen that? Working with the
Yeah, I've seen that drill a lot. I think it's a great drill. I think, sort of in respect to what Kuz is talking about with the swing plane and finishing high, it's if you finish on plane, right? If you finish on plane, then on a lower pitch, by definition, your finish is higher. And on a higher pitch, by definition, your finish is lower. So, higher pitch, your swing plane's more like this, lower pitch, more like this, right? But in general, it depends on the athlete, depends on the kid, and different guys need different drills. They need to train different portions of their swing if they have a hole in one spot or the other. And a lot of kids might be proficient at handling the ball up in the zone, but they really struggle with the ball down in the zone.
Right.
And in that case, that's an awesome drill for them to sort of feel the posture that they need, the slot that they need, the shoulder turn that they need on that particular pitch location, you know? So I love what is it that you talk about with the swing plane in terms of it's bent too far and you need to over exaggerate in the other direction? Who's one of the Oakland hitting coaches, right? I like this analogy too.
So I was telling JT the other day, you know, Jim Eppert, our minor league hitting coordinator, he says that if he hands you a piece of metal that's bent this way, how are you going to get that thing straight? Right? So if you have a piece of metal and you just bend it back this way, it's probably going to just go right back to where it was, right? So we got to bend that piece of metal up this way, right, to get it back flat. You know, so it's just exaggerating that feel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah. Just with any mechanic, that I guess the principle or the idea is that a lot of times you need to over exaggerate in one direction to actually get it to regulate in the game to being where you want it to be, you know?
Yeah, that's a great point that makes. I do it a lot with young players. They don't really load. Like I'm talking like 12-year-olds, 10 to 12-year-olds. They just step forward. So I make sure they over exaggerate their load into their back hip by stepping back onto a wedge. Just a different way of doing like an over exaggeration, right?
Yeah.
I think it's so important when you train to over exaggerate. It's a great point.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be, I mean, if you have some things to work on and you're comfortable working on them, you might not be working on them. You know, it should, you know, in baseball, if we move our hands this much, it's like, whoa, what's going on? You know, so it's almost like training, trying to be uncomfortable to be comfortable, right?
Right.
It's like, do you guys ever do that with pitchers? Like, especially, I don't know, with high school kids, a lot of times the first curveball they'll throw in a bullpen, we tell them to spike it because we're just trying to get them to over exaggerate releasing further out front. It's like, how fine are you guys with your adjustments? Like, do you try to get them to over exaggerate adjustments, or is it pretty fine?
No, I think, you know, like what Rosie was saying about the load, you know, what I do sometimes is I'll have the pitchers, they're 1 foot in front of the rubber, and then I'll have them step back into the rubber and lift their leg up at the same time. So they're creating some energy going back before they go forward. So there's always a lot of over exaggeration. With young guys, I'll do like quarterback throws. I'll get them into a position of being a quarterback and move their feet and kind of shuffle back before they start shuffling forward. I think if you look at every good athlete, they make an opposite move before they make an initial move to the direction they want to go. Hitters go back, golfers go back, bowlers go back, jump shooters in basketball, they go down before they go up. So any over exaggeration is going to, you know, help these athletes out. The one thing I did want to say, Rosie, is when I saw your swing in your video going east to west, the first thing that ran through my mind is how many holes that you have in your swing going east and west. So if I was to form a scouting report, I'd say, well, he's east and west. He can't cover north or south because the breaking ball is going to go below that flat barrel swing. Or you guys know better than me on the swing, but if we're going east and west, I got depth breaking ball in my pocket and I got elevated fastball. Now I just got to see if you're on time. If you're not on time, or if you're in the zone, out of the zone, I can pitch you to the away zone because you can't catch up to the away fastball by being so fast east and west. So now I got the away zone. If you can cheat and get inside, then, you know, that's something different. But, you know, a long swing sometimes from a pitching standpoint, you know, I like to keep a long swing long and just let you fly out to the opposite field rather than, because sometimes if you have a long swing and I pitch you in and you're a good athlete and you react, and I actually make your swing better sometimes. So from a scouting standpoint, watching hitters, that's why it's important that pitchers watch batting practice and watching swings. But on your east and west swing, the first thing that showed up to me is, wow, there's a lot of holes in that swing I can pitch to.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Adam.
Yeah.
I got a question on, swinging, north. So I work with the younger age group, 12-year-olds, 10, 11, 12s typically for competitive club ball, and teaching them to swing north. How do I teach that without getting their mindset into, I see a lot of times when they're trying to swing north that they start dropping their shoulders quite a bit, a lot of times, to try to elevate that ball to go more of up, which I don't want, of course, to go straight up, right? So
Right.
how do you go about teaching something like that without having them drop their shoulders?
Well, I mean, as a coach, I think initially, I think that's okay at first. Like we just talked about over adjustments. I mean, if they're not finishing north, then it's okay that they're doing it, but you have to make sure that you get back to the middle ground. And it's kind of cool that you said that, because it kind of segues into the next drill I'm going to show you, which I like doing. It helped me be direct. If you don't want to swing down on it, we all know that, right? But you want to be direct to the baseball still, right? You want to put a direct swing and then finish north. So it's the move. I think that's what I would work on with a kid, is making sure that they're getting to the ball first and then making the move, extending through the baseball. Kuz and X, I'm not sure if you guys want to hit on that.
I think at JT and I, we like to teach at launch position when your foot's walking away from the hands there and your load at that reference point of where your front foot hits the ground at toe touch. We want the knob of the bat point at the catcher's feet, and if we can be in line with this shoulder, again, if we push our hands out this way, we could be more of an east and west swing. If we can get loaded up here, the knob of the bat point at the catcher's feet, and stay inside that baseball, then I think we're going to have a better swing plane going into the ball, versus pushing our hands out. So I think if we can get loaded up in a good launch position and fire from there without any hip slide, all that other stuff, and just thinking about staying inside the baseball, I think that can help a lot.
You feel like
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Adam.
No, JT, go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, also, it's very, very much connected to what you talked about last week in terms of connection. So, finishing north doesn't have to be connected necessarily to exactly what happens on the back half of it. Like, we want to stay super connected and super direct on the back half to be as efficient as possible into the zone, right? And then if we actually finish through it, I think counterintuitively, a lot of times when kids are like popping stuff straight up, it actually has to do with cutting your swing off too much and chip shotting the bottom of the ball, rather than actually, like, when kids are popping it up when they're 11, 12 years old, they're not actually getting the ball pure and, the full mass and momentum of the barrel is behind the ball like this. It's much more often that they chip shot the bottom of it and the barrel is beneath the equator. And so they're popping it up that way. So direct on the back half, but then finishing high on the front half keeps your barrel in line with that pitch out front, right? So it's like, they can be counterintuitive sometimes. It's like, why I think so much of like swing down was popular for such a long time is because your initial move into it does need to be fairly direct, right? Like with your hands aren't creating a big loop on the back half necessarily. So,
No, that's a great point. But I'm going to show you a drill, especially Joseph, with this double T. Joseph, have you done the double T drill with your kids at all?
Yes, I have.
Okay. That's excellent, right? Go ahead.
When we get to that point, get to that power lane, fully extension, then you go into the north once you, of course, make your contact. What is your opinion on, let's just say for launch angle, following through that full plane for the swing? Do you think that would not be a good way to go about the swing? If you understand what I'm saying?
Say it again. Well, ask it again.
So talking about the launch angle, the way that the
Right.
pitcher is pitching, going through that plane that we want to go through, do you
Right.
think that swinging through that plane completely would be counterintuitive to swinging to north? So making your direct and then going north from there.
Are you saying that they're not like staying on plane? You say that it's not going north?
So what I'm trying to get at, sorry, I know it's kind of confusing. I'm trying to jot it in my head how I'm supposed to say it. Is pretty much if you wanted to go about teaching, the swing, the follow through, could you say you're going through that launch angle, right? There's a certain plane that you're swinging through to make contact to the ball. Could you say finishing through that plane to complete that swing instead of just saying, hey, swing north?
Yes, for sure. I mean,
Okay.
and finishing north is kind of an over exaggeration because I've seen a lot of kids, they finish east to west. And right when I say north, you're going to see they get to this position a lot better. It's just one cue that I personally like to use. And I feel like that's what I'm learning. I like being on this webinar because I get to learn different cues from all these different guys. But yeah, you're saying the same thing.
Adam, can I make one?
Yeah, JT.
One thing that's very important to also understand when you're talking about, like we talked about, lower pitch, you're going to finish higher, higher pitch, you're going to finish lower if you're finishing on plane. When kids are younger, the strike zone is higher. Every level you go up, the strike zone gets lower, right? By the time you get to the big leagues, that's the lowest strike zone you're going to have. So there's also, it's like you have to cover a bigger strike zone when you're younger, and the pitch that's at your shoulders is a strike, So like that swing plane up here, you actually need to learn that to be effective when you're a younger kid. You have to cover a bigger zone. That has an effect also,
That's a great point, man. That is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's the environment or the level that you're at is going to dictate what the strike zone is, what your swing is going to be. JT, that's awesome, man. Joseph, did that help you? Or is it still convoluted?
No, that made sense. It clarified. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. But remember, finishing north is just a cue, right? Just to get them away from east to west, just to get like a better visual. I like the analogy of an airplane taking off. Like that's what I kind of see in my head. It's like, right? It's not an airplane that loses control, right? It takes off to a destination instead of going out of control. It's just different cues to help our young hitters understand a little bit better. Okay, double T drill.
Generating more length through the zone helps you maintain swing plane and prevents you from cutting off your swing. So this is the double T drill that I enjoy practicing, which will test your length through the baseball. And here's how you set it up. First, set up 2 tees. One in the middle of the plate without a ball, and the other one about 6 inches in front of that first tee with the ball on it. Load, stride, and take a swing. Make sure that you're direct to the first tee. You clip it with your barrel, then extend to the second tee and drive the ball up the middle. Test the length of your swing by backing up the first tee, the tee that doesn't have a ball. If you can't extend to the baseball after clipping the first tee, that means your early connection angle is either too steep or too loopy. And your bat was quick in and out of the hitting zone. So move the tee that doesn't have the ball closer to the tee that does have the ball. But always challenge yourself to keep the 2 tees at least 6 inches apart. These inches in between the 2 tees test your length and your swing plane through your hitting zone.
Would that drill help your young players?
Yeah, for sure. I would say so.
All right.
Great drill. Yeah, I think that's a good drill. The athletes or the young baseball players that we have doing those drills, they get that immediate feedback, but at the same time, they should try to get somebody to video them taking that swing if possible, so they can also see what their swing looks like and where it's starting in the zone and where it's finishing. Because obviously you can start in the zone and then come out of the zone just as fast. So I think if they can get a good look at video of that, I think that they'll be in a better position to evaluate themselves.
That's a great point, man. To see it, actually get a good read on it for yourself and to study it.
Yeah, because sometimes, you could take as many swings as you want and thinking that you're taking great swings because you're clipping the first tee and hitting the second one and hitting the second ball just fine. But if you're not actually driving it, or if you're actually not, having the right posture, or if you're, finishing east to west, you can still finish east to west there, but and you may not know it unless you see it.
That's a great point, X. It's fantastic, man.
Video doesn't lie.
Video doesn't lie.
Rosie.
Yeah, Emo.
I think it's important that, just from a pitching standpoint, talking about, there is a difference between what you're talking about north and south as to an uppercut type swing.
Right.
Maybe if we could clarify that. And also, when we're talking, and maybe clarify for me, when we're talking about not swinging down on the baseball, but, the hands and the barrel are above the strike zone. So at some point, what do we mean by not swinging down? Because, the bat's 32 inches, 34, whatever it is. And when Kouz is talking about, keeping the hands inside the ball, wouldn't you say you have to go down, explain the terminology, how you would teach a young kid that you are moving your hands into the strike zone or height wise. You see what I'm trying to say?
Right. Yeah. You have to get that. I mean, I think that's part of connection. Like you want to have, I talked about that early connection, like that, where your bat is back here, right? If it's looping too early, right? If you try to keep your, if you're in this position, it's going to be counterproductive. And if you're too steep to it, if it's like this, it's got to be like that. They like that 90 degrees. I mean, the terminology, I'm sure JT, Kouz, you guys can probably explain it better, or X.
I think, you're right, Emo. I mean, the hands are at the top of the strike, so maybe, this hand is at the top of the shoulder here. And you're right, these hands do have to come down. The tip of the bat does have to come down here. I don't think we want to take the tip of the bat and our hands and we're with the tip of the bat and come straight down where we have the barrel on top of the baseball. Now the bottom of our arc, if we're talking swing plane, is way out in front of the plate or by our left hip, out in front of our hip. Does that make sense? Maybe out front, closer to the pitcher. There's, you talked about the launch angle thing. That's a launch angle one is we're not back here and then swinging up this way. We're swinging on plane with a pitch, and it determines where we catch that pitch in the swing plane.
Right. I think
we're on plane. What's that?
I think that's kind of what I was trying to get for the young kids, that it's not a straight up or up north south type of move. There is some sort of path that you have to take to be able to catch that baseball with the barrel.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's what we're always learning.
Yeah, I mean, I guess thinking about like inside out is kind of what you're talking about in terms of like in uppercut kind of swing. So you want to like show them like inside out versus on plane versus across, just with like your front arm. I think that's.
So if we got the line of the pitch coming right through this camera here, right at us, if what JT's talking about, if we are inside out and we're talking on swing plane and Emo, this is what I think you're talking about is when we're inside out, our swing plane is going as a right-handed hitter, going towards the second baseman, going that way. So we're off plane of the pitch. If you flip it and we're across or down, we're this way, which we don't want to be either. We want to be on plane. We want our, if the line of the pitch is coming right through this plane, we want to be on this plane. Can you see that plane like this? So if the line of the pitch is on that plane right there, we can't miss. We could be late and punch it through the second base hole, or we could be early and pull that thing. So, like JT explained earlier, if we're talking, if this is a swing plane, and we want to be on plane with that pitch, we got a low inside pitch, our swing plane has got to be a lot steeper. Again, if that low inside pitch, if we're trying to keep that thing fair, we got to come at it from this way. We're not dipping our spine and go this way and coming at it from, we still want to keep our posture and come at it nice. But if we are here with our swing plane, we're going to wear that third base coach out. Again, opposite, if we're inside out, we're immediately off plane of the pitch. We talked about last session, if the line of the pitch is coming right through the camera and we swing down, our timing's got to be perfect, right? So the more we could be on plane, if we're trying to think about hitting that ball back where it came from, and we're on time, I mean, that ball should come back, right from your arm, you know what I mean? So this whole launch angle thing is, for me, it depends on where we catch that in the swing plane if we're on plane with the pitch. So if we catch that thing late, punch it to second base, or if we're early, we're going to pull that thing. Does that make sense? And then the farther we catch it out front on the arc is going to give us our launch angle. If we catch it way out front, the higher we're going to hit it. If we catch it back further in the arc, we're going to hit it lower.
But if it's a higher pitch also, what does it look like if it's a higher pitch?
So higher pitch, our posture, our spine angle is going to be more up and down, and the tip of the bat's going to come back a little bit and be on a flatter plane this way. So more of maybe a little bit more of an east-west.
So your pitch location determines kind of how steep your swing plane is, right? To create as much barrel presence as possible.
Well, it made a lot of sense to me when you're thinking hands or barrel. When you don't want to throw the barrel down like you did. So that's kind of where I was going with the hand position versus the barrel position. And when you chopped it like you're chopping wood, that's swinging down on the ball. You got no shot.
Right.
And you made it a little bit easier with your other moves with your hands. So.
And a lot of big leaguers train down and keeping their barrel above the ball and hands above the ball, and they train. I mean, you watch Dustin Pedroia, and he takes these on deck swings that are like, these very odd swings, or the Derek Jeters where he just swinging down this way. And I remember watching him on deck. I'm like, man, the way you're swinging there on deck is not what you do in your live at bat. And he gets those pitches inside. He's inside out and shooting that thing in the 4-hole, And so some big leaguers have to train. Some players have to train that way to get there. And
that goes back to the over-exaggeration that we said earlier.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Mike Schmidt book. Mike Schmidt is a Hall of Famer, and what he was thinking in his head was, I have to keep the barrel above my hands, And so, that then becomes this whole idea of the feel versus real. So what's the cue that I have to say in my head as a hitter to get me to the right spot to actually barrel up the ball? And then like X was talking about, it speaks to the importance of video, and then how video doesn't lie. There's a big separation between what it feels like we're doing and what we are objectively doing. And so if you can study a lot of video, and like X talked about, really as a young kid, try to be exposed to that and get to look what your swing looks like and understand, all right, I'm missing under it when I do this, I'm missing over it when I do this, can be super, super informative. So, but there's no coaching cue is wrong if it gets you the results that you want, right? Like there's all these arguments about swing it down, swing it up, launch angle. Well, the fact of the matter is that one kid that you coach might need to be told, you have to finish north to south. And another kid might need to hear something else, right? Because different things connect with different kids. And that's what's so cool about what Adam's doing, especially providing sort of this personal attention and taking these kids through it and talking to them about it, is that he can kind of help them figure out exactly what their cue is that gives them the best shot to be successful, you know?
Yeah, thank you guys. That's awesome. That's good stuff. Does anybody out there have any questions for anybody? I know there's a lot of people still on. I know we're past the midnight hour. Just kidding, not that late.
Yeah, I do have a question. This is Mark Rancon. Yeah.
Mark.
So how do we help kids then with the finish from dropping their back shoulder down so much where they end up, I want them to swing north, but without having them drop their elbow down or their back shoulder down so much where they end up popping the ball up. Because I have a lot of my kids trying to keep the swing level and go through the plate and swing up, but it ends up causing them to pop up the ball more.
Right.
I can't get them to stop doing that.
I mean, me personally, I'm telling a player, this is me, I would say just make sure you're going right to the baseball.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying chop down, but to help your player out, that's a cue I would tell him. Go right to the baseball and then get extended, right?
Okay.
Like short to it, long through it is what I was raised on, right? You want to make sure you get there first and let it eat. Let it just extend out. Yeah,
okay.
if you try to create the extension on the back end, back here, no way, man. Yeah, you're gonna pop it up, you're gonna flare it, you're gonna roll over. It's get to it and stay through it.
Okay.
I also to add to that, I know a lot of young kids they're not fond of the tee a lot of times, but you know, so many major leaguers use the tee, and to get some of those feels, I think it's really important. And one of the drills, kind of like Adam was speaking on earlier, is maybe that back against your net, but at the same time, you know, and Kuz was talking about this too, maybe bringing the ball in closer to your body, so your hands have to be, you know, you have to get your load at the right spot, and everything starts inside of the baseball. Because if you're getting a baseball that you're swinging at and you have to stay inside, you're not going to be dipping down immediately. You know, if you're bringing that tee closer to your body and maybe even a little bit higher, you're not going to be able to stay inside that ball and be able to hit that higher level pitch. You can't go straight uppercut to a high pitch. You have to be more direct, like we talked about. So for me, I think it's important to get the kids on the tee, little higher level pitch, and get them to be more direct to the ball. And then if they're already popping it up, if they're already finishing high, then it's more of a focus point for them to be more direct, like some of these guys mentioned.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I like the short to it, long through it. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, thank you all so much for being on. You guys are awesome. Yeah, can't say it enough. Really enjoy this. I learned a ton being on here with you guys. You guys have a good night, all right?